Star Wars isn't just movies, it's books and games and comics and action figures and TV shows, and was a religion for a brief bit in the UK because our census is obviously a joke. That's the genius of its success. George Lucas let it expand beyond the cinema screen to become a massive universe to rival Tolkien's. But it's just a bunch of hastily made up stories that simply piggyback on the world of the movies, right? Well, in some ways yes. Very much yes. While the so-called expanded universe may have been made non-canon as part of Disney's scheme for world domination, that hasn't stopped the movies repeatedly cribbing ideas, characters and plots from it. I'm Alex from WhatCulture.com and here are the 15 biggest things the Star Wars movies stole from the expanded universe. Number 15. Double-bladed lightsabers. Hate the Phantom Menace all you want, but you can't deny that lightsaber duel was awesome. The music, the choreography, and of course Darth Maul and his heavily merchandised double-bladed lightsaber. But the prequel trilogy wasn't the first time we saw one of those blades. That was 4 years earlier in Tales of the Jedi, a long-running comic that fleshed out the prehistory of the galaxy millennia before the events with the Skywalkers, wielded by Dark Jedi Exar Kun. It's not a coincidence either. The debut issue of the weapon was published in 1995, just around the time Lucas was working on The Phantom Menace. Cheeky. Number 14. Coruscant. Timothy Zahn's heir to the Empire was pretty damn important. It not only introduced fan-favourite characters Mara Jade and Grand Admiral Thrawn, but pretty much reignited interest in Star Wars after almost a decade of shitty Ewok movies and cartoons. Oh, and it also named Coruscant. George Lucas had always planned the Old Republic to have a city-planet base, but it was this seminal book that first realised it and coined the name. The lengthy Senate meetings were all Lucas though.
I love democracy.
Number 13. The Jedi as boring monks. A common criticism of the prequel's conception is that Lucas took all the intrigue of the mystical Jedi and presented it at face value. Yoda and Obi-Wan were reclusive celibate monks because that's what all Jedi Knights were, and not at all because they were in hiding. The whole Jedi code that decreed no love and brown robes and generally not being all that knighty also came from Heir to the Empire and was furthered by the New Jedi Order series. Number 12. Aayla Secura. Aayla Secura is a pretty standard background Jedi in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, with little real importance of note aside from getting gunned down in the stupidest way possible. Well, aside from the fact that she was the first character to come fully formed in the movies from the expanded universe. Secura first appeared in the Star Wars Republic comic book series back in 2000, a young Jedi Knight jetting around the galaxy before the Clone Wars. Her design was so striking that when George Lucas saw some cover art of the Blue Twi'lek, he decided to put her in his next film. Whatever tickles your fancy, George. Number 11. General Madine's beard. By the time Return of the Jedi rolled around, Star Wars was a merchandising giant, to the point where creating tie-ins began to dominate key development points of the movie. There was even one creative decision in the film that was done to better fit it in with the toys. Crix Madine, the general who briefs the rebels on Han's strike team, is notorious for his incredibly obvious fake beard. Turns out the reason for such a shoddy makeup effect in a movie series known for envelope-pushing visuals was simple. They realised at the last minute that the action figure Kenner were developing had a beard, and in the interest of giving kids the best possible tools to recreate the movie, the character needed one too. Although you just have to feel sorry for kids whose parents brought them a Crix Madine figure for Christmas. Number 10. A whole load of force powers. Despite video games based on movies typically being as bad as movies based on video games, there's been some knockouts from Star Wars. X-Wing, Rogue Squadron, KOTOR, the original Battlefront, Star Wars Connect. The best of the bunch though are the Dark Forces and Jedi Knight games, which allowed you to finally become a real Jedi. They're so good in fact that some of the new force powers they created were brought across to the movies, like force speed in The Phantom Menace and a lifting force choke in Revenge of the Sith. Number 9. Quinlan Vos. The EU taking things from the movies is pretty much a given, but one time the movies took back. In the scene where Sebulba fails to correct all the Phantom Menace's mistakes by killing Jar Jar, there was a nameless background extra with dreads and a yellow eyeband who was so striking that his design was cribbed for Quinlan Vos, a Clone Wars era Jedi from the comics. But then, in Revenge of the Sith, we hear Obi-Wan say,
Master Vos has moved his troops to Boss Pity,
bringing him back to the world of the movies. Boss Pity is just a made-up word there. Number 8. Kashyyyk. George Lucas really wants people to forget the Star Wars Holiday Special. I wonder why. So it sucks for him that several integral Star Wars concepts were introduced in it. There's the debut of Boba Fett, who was there to set up his appearance in Empire so doesn't count here, and the Wookiee home planet of Kashyyyk. Despite sweeping most of the show under the carpet, Lucas kept a hold of the idea of big wooden houses in the trees, and after being swapped out of Return of the Jedi at the last minute for Endor, Kashyyyk was canonised in Revenge of the Sith. Number 7. Tsu Choi. Aayla Secura and Quinlan Vos were both relatively noticeable EU inclusions, but here's another third Jedi even obsessive fans probably missed. At the start of the Kashyyyk sequence in Revenge of the Sith, there's some strange flying bug things ridden by strange humanoid bug things. That'd be Su Choi, a minor comic Jedi who appears for a couple of issues of Star Wars Republic and was later killed by Vader. Seriously, that's him. Wikipedia says so. Pretty obscure. Although he almost had a bigger part. He was originally going to be on the Jedi Council until changes meant that he wasn't. It's quite an emotion. Number 6. Shadows of the Empire ships in the special editions. In 1996, we finally found out what happened between the events of Empire and Jedi. Turns out Boba Fett and Luke didn't go straight to Jabba's palace, and we got a story so big it had to be told over games, books, comics, trading cards, and of course, action figures. Because Shadows of the Empire came just a year before the special editions, a lot of elements from the multimedia event made their way into the updates of the original trilogy, including a landing craft, a swoop bike, and ASP droids. By far the biggest though was the Outrider, the ship of Han Solo replacement Dash Rendar, which looks exactly like what you'd draw if you were told to make another Millennium Falcon, only quote-unquote cooler. Number 5, the Great Hyperspace War. Everybody wants a Knights of the Old Republic movie because, well, it would be f***ing awesome. Just look at that! Although, fun fact, that era is actually alluded to in Revenge of the Sith. George Lucas wanted a mural on the wall of Palpatine's office, and, because they really liked Star Wars, what a shocker, the production designers made one inspired by the Great Hyperspace War, a massive conflict between the Sith Empire and the Republic set 5,000 years before the main movies told in the Tales of the Jedi comics. Number 4. Lots of elements from droids. The mid-80s cartoon droids was already pretty out of step with the Star Wars continuity even before it and the rest of the EU was labelled non-canon. It was, after all, a mid-80s cartoon. All bright ideas, cheapish animation and randomised plots. But that doesn't mean it didn't leave some impact on the movies. A lot of names and ideas wound up informing the prequels. There's Bogdan, a villain named Kylo Ren, a boom-to-speed race, a 50s style diner owned by a 4-armed creature, a planet littered with sinkholes, and a guy who rides a wheel bike. Wow, George Lucas must have really liked that show. Number 3, Aurebesh. On some of the screens on the second Death Star there was some strange alien language. This was complete and utter gobbledygook, meaningless sci-fi gumbo, but it would end up forming one of the most important parts of Star Wars. In an example of how much the expanded universe would take the smallest things and blow them right open, when the Star Wars role-playing game came out in 1987, the type style was given a name, Aurebesh, and a proper translation to our own alphabet. This proved so influential that Lucas took it for the movies, replacing English with it in the special editions and using it all over the prequels. Number 2, the Force being more than sides. The Force didn't just awaken in December 2015, it changed. Nothing as big as midichlorians, we don't want that again.
Midichlorians are a microscopic life form that resides within all living cells.
But there were some cool shake-ups. Aside from stuff like Kylo's laser catch, the whole balance between the light and dark sides became a bit more complicated. Kylo Ren fears the sliver of light in him, while expanded material reveals Rey felt a pull of dark during their climactic duel. Those are fairly new, abstract concepts for the films, but not Star Wars as a whole. There's been shades of grey throughout the EU, and we've had the sides called just The Light and The Dark in the Clone Wars animated series. Number 1. Kylo Ren is basically Jacen Solo. A son of Han Solo and Leia Organa, who is raised to be a Jedi but turns to the dark side, taking on an assumed moniker and killing a family member who dies trying to save their son, Ben. What a great character! So great, Star Wars has done it twice. Before Kylo Ren, there was Jacen Solo, who assumed the title Darth Kaidos and, among other crimes, murdered his aunt Mara Jade, who had a son with Luke called Ben. So there's our list. What did you think? Any more things that the movie stole from the expanded universe? Let us know down in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more great film content, and you can follow me on Twitter here. See you soon.